Oceans Beyond Piracy is a project of the One Earth Future Foundation. One Earth Future is a privately funded foundation located near Denver, Colorado. It seeks to reduce conflict through better governance frameworks. One Earth Future believes these frameworks must include inputs from multiple stakeholders, including governments, civil society, and particularly the private sector. Established in 2010 as its first implementation project, the aim of Oceans Beyond Piracy is to encourage this type of multi-stakeholder cooperation to find a sustainable solution to the problem of maritime piracy. Somalia is often described as being the perfect storm for producing pirate activity. Somalia has operated within a governance vacuum since the early 90s, suffers a devastating rate of poverty, and its 3,300 kilometers of coastline provide easy access to major international shipping lanes. These problems are compounded by the fact that the crimes occur in international waters. Each vessel can have as many as 7 or 8 countries with an interest in it, including the flag, the owner, the crew, and the charterer, and the phenomenon of piracy sits precariously on the line between war and crime, and has led to confusion and duplication of law enforcement and operational responses. A resurgence of piracy off the coast of Somalia began in 2005 and has grown exceptionally violent and expensive. The number of attacks attributed to Somali pirates in 2011 was 237. Another consequence of piracy has been an urgent need to develop domestic Somali maritime law enforcement capacity. This has led to a proliferation of agreements between the Somali Transitional Federal Government, or regional authorities such as Somaliland and Puntland, and private security companies to establish and train Somali maritime law enforcement, in some cases with funding provided by other actors. While the UN and international community have made several calls for Somalia and its regional authorities to develop domestic capacity to address pirates on land, the arms embargo imposed by the United Nations Security Council in January 1992 has made it difficult for some of these initiatives to become fully functional, despite the participation of the TFG and regional authorities. Somali attempts to build capacity to fight piracy through requesting waivers to the arms embargo must therefore be weighed against the international community's reluctance to allow such waivers due to concerns about the fragile security situation in Somalia. This is an example of the difficulties associated with building capacity and ensuring sufficient civilian oversight over these new armed organizations in a fragile state context through the use of non-state actors. In reaction to the growing piracy problem, an internationally recommended transit corridor was established, intended to direct shipping traffic away from areas most susceptible to pirate attack, and allow international navies to patrol a more limited area in order to protect merchant shipping. In response, pirate action groups moved their activity further out into the Indian Ocean, through newly adopted tactics such as the use of motherships, which are captured vessels capable of traveling further out into the ocean than typically used small skiffs. Ultimately, this made rerouting an infeasible response to escaping pirate attack, since pirate gangs were able to travel extensive distances to attack vessels transiting towards the Bab el-Mandeb, the Straits of Hormuz, and the shipping convergence points near Sri Lanka. The stakes have risen for seafarers as well. Pirate gangs have acquired weaponry such as rocket-propelled grenades and assault rifles, exposing seafarers to high levels of violence. Average time in captivity has risen to 8 months, and 35 people were killed as a result of pirate attacks and hijackings in 2011 alone. As the geographic high-risk area off the coast of Somalia expanded and other mechanisms used to prevent pirate attack proved vastly expensive and ultimately futile, the use of privately contracted armed security personnel has grown increasingly commonplace. The two types of maritime security are privately contracted armed security personnel, or PCASP, and vessel protection detachments, commonly referred to as VPDs. PCASP refers to privately hired armed security details that accompany crews on board vessels in high-risk areas. On a vessel protection detachment, a group of trained troops may embark on a ship to provide logistical support. It is estimated that the use of privately contracted armed security personnel on board vessels to deter pirate attacks cost the international economy roughly $530.6 million in 2011, a part of the total $1.1 billion spent on all security measures. This rise in the use of private armed security came at a time of increased scrutiny of private armed forces ashore. You can see from this timeline, the Blackwater incident occurred in 2007, just before piracy came to capture the attention of the public. As a consequence of Blackwater and other perceived challenges of regulating private security actors, Work began on the Montreux Document and the International Code of Conduct. While focus primarily was aimed at land-based security companies, the first private security firms were starting to enter the scene in the waters off the Somali coast. Unlike their land-based colleagues, these teams had very little oversight and visibility on their operations. As the piracy attacks reached record numbers from late 2010 through 2011, the number of private security companies reached nearly 200, and it is estimated that up to half the vessels transiting through high-risk areas now carry armed security teams, either PCASP or VPDs. Early attempts were made at self-regulation of the new industry by the Security Association for the Maritime Industry, as well as other industry groups in the UK and US. Expansion of the high-risk area at sea has now driven much of the shipping traffic very close to the shore, particularly off India, which has created more frequent interaction between local fishermen and coastal vessels and merchant vessels carrying armed teams. This has resulted in the tragic deaths of 2 fishermen by the Armed Military Security Detachment on board the Enrica Lexi. This leads to a discussion of some of the specifics of regulation and oversight of maritime private security. As an emerging industry, private maritime security companies are guided by a large number of documents providing broad guidance, country codes of flag, coastal, port, and security company headquarters state, and by international law. Like land-based private security companies, the maritime security industry derives guidance from the Montreux Document on private military and security companies and the International Code of Conduct for Private Security Providers, also known as the ICOC. Both the Montreux Document and ICOC possess limitations as they relate to private maritime security providers, however. Both documents were developed specifically for land-based private security companies in the context of armed conflict. Additionally, ICOC provides for industry self-regulation. Neither have legal standing. Various countries are involved in the international shipping industry, including vessel flag state, managing and owner state, port and coastal state, and state of security company headquarters. The number of states involved represents a challenge to security providers in navigating the complex legal codes of multiple countries. For this reason, many stakeholders in the maritime industry are pushing for better international regulation of the private maritime security industry. Ever since the emergence of the private maritime security industry, we have seen multiple attempts at regulation of it and guidance provided to shipowners and security companies alike. While many maritime security companies have now signed the Code of Conduct, the specific challenges at sea require a new framework to provide an overarching legal basis. Accordingly, the IMO has now recommended that the International Standards Organization provide guidance on private security oversight for flag states by November of this year. The Security Association for the Maritime Industry and the International Association of Maritime Security Professionals both aim to assist in regulating the maritime security industry through a certification process, which would assist shipowners in choosing credible private armed security providers. Additionally, Version 4 of the Shipping Industry Developed Best Management Practices provides guidance to ships and crews on recommended ship protection measures. BMP4 also advises reporting the presence of private armed security teams and notes that an onboard security team should not be used as a substitute for other BMP4 ship hardening recommendations. The interim guidance to UK flag shipping on the use of armed guards to defend against the threat of piracy in exceptional circumstances was developed by the UK Department for Transport. This document outlines the British government's policy on the use of armed guards, the importance of conducting a risk assessment prior to hiring a private security company, as well as the importance of completing due diligence on which private security company to employ. The interim guidance also includes factors that should be considered and included in the contract between shipping company and private security company. The GuardCon standard contract for the employment of security guards on vessels was developed by the Baltic and International Maritime Council, the oldest of the international shipping associations. GuardCon was developed in spring 2012 to assist the shipping industry in navigating the complexities of the private security industry. GuardCon provides to companies hiring security teams guidance on vetting contractors, permits and license for weapons carriage, and rules for the use of force. The International Maritime Organization's Maritime Safety Committee developed MSC Circulars 1405, 1406, and 1408 for ship owners, operators, and shipmasters, flag states, and port and coastal states, respectively. The IMO circulars provide guidance on shipmaster authority and vessel chain of command, vetting of private security companies, and reporting following an incident. As previously mentioned, industry and nations are both looking to November, when the ISO will deliver recommended guidelines for flag state oversight of private security at the next meeting of the IMO Maritime Safety Committee. This clip shows an armed security team defending a vessel against a pirate attack. As you can see, the skiff approaches very quickly, leaving the team little time to react. This is a very clear example of the challenges faced at sea by security teams. These factors leave little time for security forces to determine intent and to employ a layered response of warnings. What is not clear in this video is that the pirates are also firing back at the bridge of the vessel, and that the pirates had been shadowing the vessels for some hours prior to the actual attack. Outstanding challenges remain for the private armed security industry operating in the maritime sector. Proper vetting and certification continues to be ambiguous in the absence of a single standard accreditation body. A solid understanding of the laws concerning weapons embarkation and disembarkation in numerous countries remains difficult to master, as they vary greatly from one regional country to the next. Some countries, for example India, are concerned about civilian vessels carrying weapons through the exclusive economic zone without reporting this to the relevant authority. However, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea does not obligate vessels to report this. Reporting on the use and presence of onboard private security teams, let alone on incidents, is likely to be underreported. Reporting on any incident is in many cases at the discretion of the security team leader or the ship owner, and there is not a standard or universal reporting mechanism. Rules for the use of force has become a contentious topic in the wake of the Enrico Lexi incident, where an Italian naval security force fatally shot 2 Indian fishermen they mistook for pirates. GUARDCON, the BIMCO contract, suggests graduated and proportional defense to include nonviolent measures. Where this becomes difficult is during a fast approach by a skiff. Whether it belongs to pirates or fishermen is extremely difficult to discern until it is too late. While it is likely that incidents are highly underreported, what are the realistic possibilities to improve those rates? What is the role of the various coastal states? While India, Kenya, and others are impacted by the use of privately contracted armed security teams, where are they able to weigh in? If the ship's master is to retain command of the vessel, is he then liable for an incident where the security team acted? In Afghanistan and Iraq, the private security industry captured the attention of the public through a series of highly reported incidents, which brought into question the amount of oversight that this new industry required. This resulted in rapid changes to policy and the implementation of strict oversight by the employer nations and by the country in which they were deployed. As discussed, at sea there is a different model. The guards are mostly employed by private industry and operate outside the jurisdiction of any nation. While this presents challenges, it is hoped that effective oversight can be employed before we have a series of tragedies at sea.